Yeah, thanks, Anna, for the kind introduction. And also, thanks, Wolfgang, for giving me the opportunity to speak here today. It's a great honor for me because that's where it all started for me, where I started my Aso research many, many years ago. And I'm happy to be back here at my hometown, at my alma mater, to present here my most recent research, actually. Today, I would like to take you on a journey and talk about how the Aso project actually led to what I'm doing right now about places of resilience in rural Japan. So first, I would like to reflect on how resilience actually already played a decisive role for understanding the well-being of my respondents during my research in Aso on the connection or the link between political participation and subjective well-being. And then I would like to demonstrate how this led to my current project on places of resilience. So in some way or another, it is similar to my experiences in driving a car in rural Japan. And for me, it was the opposite side of the street. So on the left-hand side, you can see my very first try of parking my car at the convenience store, which turned out, well, it was not the best result, so to say. But then I grew more confident and somehow managed to drive my car much better and even fit nicely into parking lots. And in that way, I think if I think back into my first interviews during the Aso project, they probably were like the left-hand side, but then they influenced on how I approach things and my methods and also about the results of my research as well. So let me just briefly talk about my initial project on well-being in rural Japan. So as many others that already talked today, or also as Wolfram talked about in yesterday's talk, I also used a relational approach that stressed that human, but also human and non-human relations are an important factor for understanding the well-being of individuals. In my dissertation, I focused on how making others happy in the end makes oneself happy as well. And also another part of my research was what Antonia also presented today on how acting together with or for others might be linked to one's own well-being. And then my current research on resilience also has this kind of social aspects, but also processual aspect of resilience. So I do not only focus on the resistance against natural disasters, but also on processes of adaptation and eventually also transformation of whole communities. So I understand resilience as something that is an ongoing adaptation against persistent disruptive risks. So I do not understand all kinds of risks necessarily as something that destroys whole communities, although what Signy just showed us is very close to probably that aspect. However, in many, many other cases, it's more of a disruptive force that somehow disturbs local communities and makes them change in some way or another. And that's something I would be that I will be talking about today. And there are many, many so-called disruptive risks in rural Japan and in Aso specifically. So it's the floods, it's the earthquake in 2016, it's the volcano, it's COVID-19. I believe it's also the rising air temperatures. Living in Tokyo and watching the morning news every morning, I saw that in Decisive in Kyushu, I don't know, 40 days in a row above 35 degrees or something like that. So I can imagine that, especially in Kyushu, this will be an issue as well in the upcoming years. But also, and most importantly, I understand the ongoing demographic decline happening in many, many parts throughout Japan, also as such a disruptive force. I used qualitative methods for my fieldworks, doing interviews, participating at different events, and so on in 3 rural municipalities. I started in the Aso-region for my PhD back then, but now being in Tokyo, I chose different hamlets as well, some in the Sanin region, in Tottori Prefecture, and also in rural Kanto area as well. And all of these regions have in common that they are typical examples of demographic change with high rates of aging and declining resident populations. So now I would like to first talk about how people during my research in Aso related disasters or resilience to their own well-being. I quote from an interview that I conducted in 2018. The earthquake happened about 2 years ago. 2 years ago, it was really bad everywhere around here. There were problems with food, even among colleagues. Our house was also affected, so we lived in the car. But the electricity, the gas and water were still working, so I prepared food for some people and gave it to them. Preparing food and then going to others and saying, please have some, is connected to Ikigai for me. So we can see that even during the disaster, this social relationships, this interpersonal relationships, and also doing others a favor or doing something for others was closer to linked to well-being in that sense. And a younger man who moved into the region showed how the disaster is connected to his own aspirations and his own life choices in the end. He said, I'm originally from the Kanto area. When the Kumamoto earthquake happened in April 2016, I came here to Aso as a volunteer. It was my first time in Kyushu and also my first time in Aso. I had planned to go back home after a week, but they needed more people here. Due to the severe situation, I ended up volunteering here for a year. The people here were very kind to me. That's how I came to love the region and realized that Aso really has a potential. So I decided to move here. Recently, I founded a company with 2 other young people I met. We want to use it to revitalize Aso. So in the end, he stayed and decided to contribute to the region in the way that fits to his own aspirations as well. But we can see the disaster was somehow a point of change in his own life, which he did not think of in the first place. Cool. And now let us go on to the perspective of people who work with elderlies, with older adults in Minami Aso. And let's move on to the pandemic, which is also such a disruptive force. We can see here very well how social relations are important for the well-being, especially for older adults in that region. So one employee at the Social Welfare Council in Minami Aso, for example, stressed that the older people don't go anywhere and feel lonely. So when they don't connect to other people, their muscles also get weaker. Once the strength decreases, their cognitive abilities also start to deteriorate. In addition to that, they stop caring for their appearance. Normally they would think something like, oh, today there is a community salon and I meet some friends there, so what shall I wear today? How should I arrange my hair? And so they would take care of their appearance as well. So in that sense, we can see that the well-being of older people, but also the health, the physical health, physical and mental health, both, because you could relate it to how they cope with disasters. And especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, that was a big issue because the social relationships were really hard to keep going on. So, and all these interviews that I did that were somehow related to my research of well-being in the Aso-region has had one thing in common that made me take a closer look at it. And it was that most of these people told me that while it's nice to be living here in the countryside, they all have the feeling that there is a lack of places where they would talk openly with like-minded people, where they could meet and just have a good time. Because there are like public places or there are kind of situations or events where people would meet and talk, but it's mostly older men and older men who work as farmers, who really have to say something or who can really change things. But younger men or women of an older age and people who move to the region and so on, they have the feeling that there is a huge need for such places. And I want for the rest of the talk, I would like to talk about these places and the design of these places in times of disruptive risks in rural Japan. So I approached that topic using Hannah Arendt's understanding of spaces of appearance that emerge when people work together to create something new. And these kind of spaces can emerge easily once you have that kind of condition, but they can also cease to exist very quickly once the activity ceases to be. So once you stop doing these things, once you stop talking with each other or meeting at these places, the places will vanish as well. And in that sense, I think of these spaces as something that have like an event-like character that also demonstrates how it is very much connected to the social relations that shape these places, which is also, which you can also think in terms of the theory of the Japanese theory of Ba as well, which is somehow an active and creative force in social relations and cultural histories. So it is a focus on both the actors and the situations, that you should not try to divide the actors from the situations or vice versa. So you have to think of the whole situation in terms of the actors that are present in them and the relations they have. However, when we, and most of you who work on rural Japan, when we enter rural hamlets in Japan, we very often encounter lost places. And these are 3 pictures from all of the 3 field sites that I'm currently engaging in. And these are places where people stop meeting each other, where people stop using that spaces or creating spaces of appearance. However, at the very same municipalities, we can also see that people create new places. In the same times where these places cease to exist, new ones emerge, and they have a different nature. So on the left-hand side, you can see an old primary school that is reused for different purpose now. It's now a daycare center for older people. Yeah, but on the right-hand side, you can see an entirely newly built facility, which is a log house that people decided to build for young migrants that they can try out living in that area. Something that we have been talking in the previous talks in different regions in Japan as well. So we can see that new places are emerging in these areas as well. And I would like to give you a very concrete example, which I found really interesting, because it is a process of designing such a space over a long time. This is a facility for mentally challenged people in rural Kanto. You can see the picture on the upper right corner. And it is... And the prefecture has a lot of cities and a lot of population, but it also has these kind of remote places as well. And although the municipality agreed that they would have such a facility, they decided it's not appropriate to have such a home for mentally challenged people close to a city center. So it is really a remote part of that prefecture, and within the municipality, again, it's in a hamlet that is at the end of a road in the forest. And when I stopped my rental car there was this animal waiting for me. So I was really like, wow, where am I? And well, these people living there have been living there for many, many years or decades even now. However, they were cut off from the local community. There was not much of an exchange between the people living there and the other residents. It was not considered to be part of the village or the hamlet. However, after decades, a man who runs that facility says he has had enough. Now he wants that the people who are living here, they grow older as well. And he wants them to be part of the community. He does not want to be invisible anymore. So he decided to create places where all of these different people would meet and engage with each other. And one example is the shiitake picking festival, where the mentally challenged people would grow these shiitake mushrooms. But then there's a huge festival where a lot of kanke jinko, local people, local volunteers, and so on come and would pick this shiitake, and there will be a festival-like atmosphere as well. And so this was the next step of opening up, of being part of that community, of opening up a new space that creates social bonds, that makes them part of the community. And the next step is the art festival on the left-hand side. This is right next to the train station of that municipality. So it's the center of that municipalities. And these people are now performing there a dance during this art festival. So they are visible to everybody who visits that municipality and they are clearly now part of that community, because it is not an art festival run by that facility, but this is an art festival run by the municipality, and the facility is one part of the program. So it's clear now that they have become part of the local community and are not living there remotely anymore. So they somehow managed to redefine what is community by opening up these places of social exchange. So in the end, I'm thinking of considering these spaces as places of resilience. And why am I doing that? That is because we know that social relations very much help fostering structures of resilience in rural Japan. And these places of resilience contribute to the social exchange and the structures. These are places where people can realize their own ideas, where they can become active. They are also third places in the sense, as Ray Oldenburg famously laid out in his book, as they are places where people can have a good time and meet others. They are also an ibasho, or a place where people feel attached to or feel home, especially for the mentally challenged people, because it's their home, basically. And also it's a place for neighborhood activities. As I showed you in the example right now, the people are becoming involved more and more into community activities, and even during festivals in the municipality. Last but not least, it's also a place that is connected to the natural environment. And then I think especially people who work on Aso and the revitalization movements in Aso and the community works in activities in Aso, they know that the natural environment is closely linked also to the future of the municipality, and also closely related to how people can be integrated by taking care of, for example, the grassland and so on. So I think that's why these kind of places that we can find when we take a closer look at the activities, sometimes at the border of society, can provide some interesting results. So a small conclusion to my academic journey from Aso to these places of resilience show that places of social exchange are important both for well-being and resilience of local communities. And we also can see that there are close links to the everyday life and the needs of a local population that can be quite diverse, actually, if we take a closer look. And also that this design of places is an ongoing process that depends heavily on the efforts of the local people who are involved in that processes, and that eventually can cease to exist quite quickly as well. And it is the relations of actors that constitute and the design of these places, not necessarily the buildings itself, but the relations of the actors that engage in the activities that they are trying to achieve. So I'm quite jet-lagged, so I'm looking for a coffee now, but I'm also looking forward to your questions, and thank you very much for the kind attention.